Good morning. Once again, welcome to BREW 10. We are so glad to have you here today with us, and we have a special guest today, Master Builder Keynote, Patrick Comer. Hi, Patrick. I'm so
Hi,
honored that you're
Wendy.
joining us today, and thank you for Lucid sponsorship.
Happy to be here.
By way
Happy
of
to.
introduction, Patrick Comer founded Lucid with a vision to democratize data collection by applying programmatic technology to market research. Lucid is now the worldwide leader in enterprise marketplaces for sampling. Since its inception in 2010, Lucid has become one of the most successful tech startups in New Orleans with hundreds of employees across the globe. Since 1998, Patrick has been a founder, investor, and executive for startups. He began his career as chief of staff at GovWorks, a Silicon Alley darling featured in the film Startup.com. In 2003, he started his journey in market research with iFilm and joined OTX Research, which was acquired by Ipsos in 2005. He joined in 2005, not the acquisition. At OTX, he started the sample services group that contributed to 25% of the company's revenue at the time of sale. Patrick was named Tulane Distinguished Entrepreneur of the Year by the A.B. Freeman School of Business. In 2018, the New Orleans Times-Picayune listed him as one of the city's most important figures in the 300 for 300 project. Patrick holds a BA from Swanee and an MBA from Columbia Business School. So in today's session, while Patrick is speaking, please do interact in the chat and submit your questions there as well. Remember, regarding everything that we do nowadays, it's important to have compassion and respect for others. And so please do have a respectful interaction in the chat, but we do want for you to be engaged there. At the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session with Patrick. But for now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Patrick Comer.
Yay. Thank you, Wendy. It's such a pleasure to be here today at BREW 10. Can't believe it's been 10, right? That's pretty exceptional in and of itself. And so what I'm going to do is share a screen and see if that is visible to all of you. And I believe I have the right thing up now. Let me know if there's a problem there. And so what I want to go through today is what we call the rise of ResTech. It's a little bit of history of Lucid, a little bit of history of where we're going as an industry, but also how it all pertains to you. So again, my name is Patrick Comer, founder and CEO of Lucid. Obviously, I'm cognizant that today is an auspicious moment in the life of our country, so I very much appreciate those of you who are attending live, while I'm just the warm-up to an inauguration later. So Lucid is a 10-year-old business, and we're founded and headquartered in New Orleans. And we have a global headcount well over 400, with about 25% or more of our entire workforce based in Louisiana. And we're a 10-year-old business, but like every company in 2020, we had significant challenges. But we also saw us grow and achieve some pretty amazing results. In 2020, we actually surpassed $100 million in revenue for the very first time. So 10 years to 100 million seems pretty good to me. I'd also like to again thank the entire BREW team for the opportunity to share our story. And my hope is that you will better understand that building a category and a category defining technology company in Louisiana is not only possible, but by investing in your community, in your ecosystem, you can create outsized returns. So this is a story of Lucid, but also our market research industry, or as we like to call it now, ResTech. So our business, of course, is centered on this concept of research and the ability to find answers to every single business question. So let me explain further. Our company is powered by a marketplace that connects the people with the questions to the people with the, well, answers, allowing for anyone, anywhere to understand the thoughts and feelings, opinions, and sentiments of their target customers. Our clients build surveys on platforms like SurveyMonkey, and we help them engage with the users that they need to survey. So the Lucid Marketplace consists of millions of respondents that are ready to supply their opinion with the agencies, consultancies, brands, all of them trying to seek their insights and better understand whether it's their products or their services. And also we have suppliers in our marketplace, and they are everything from research panels to rewards or loyalty programs, ad networks, publishers, panel management platforms, and many more. Essentially, any community of people online can be a supplier of insights in our marketplace. But how do we do that? Well, there are a lot of layers and nuance of how we do this technology. For one, there's a phenomenal engineering background and engineering team, and also what we would call a programmatic technology story. And without a doubt, our company has been one of the leading disruptive events in market research and insights in the past decade. And don't worry, if you want to ping me later and have a conversation about the fluid marketplace pricing dynamics, I'm sure you'll regret it about 20 minutes into that conversation. But those stories and those layers, while very important and very interesting, are really just what makes the overall and overarching vision of Lucid possible. Now, great customer experiences really start with great market research. You don't have to have attended all of the presentations and panels at BREW, maybe you should have, to know that a thoughtful and personal customer experience is really paramount now to the success of every business, whether it's a large corporation or a micro business or a startup. And you've all experienced recently delightful customer experiences where you found the app or the service to be wonderful, and also frustrating customer experiences. Sometimes those experiences are so frustrating that you delete the app or don't even finish the sale or actually don't buy the product. But you honestly can't go out and just buy a great customer experience. It has to be developed, it has to be understood. You can't buy it and then just hand it to your customers and your prospects. You can buy tools, you can hire incredible talent, and then put together a customer experience strategy. But any strategy without insights is just movement without direction. Understanding what your customers need and want, or how they're reacting to your products, your ideas, your innovation, is vital to making sure that your strategy is on point. You have to have that insight, that intelligence about their needs, your customers' needs and preferences. You have to understand your customer set, whoever they may be. They could be your corporate customers, your furniture buyers, your education seekers, your diners. And who better than to give you great customer insights than the customers themselves, or at least what we would call a representative sample of them. And that is essentially what we do. We make it super easy for you to gain insight from your most important customers and provide them into your surveys and your polls. Now, this isn't a new concept. Research has been conducted for a very long time. And it's not a new concept that by conducting market research that companies and organizations can acquire the key results that inform the when, the what, the where of how to engage with their customers, how to build new products, how to roll things out. But there is something new that is happening out there. Now, I've been in market research for 20 years now. And one of my first memories, the first probably largest project that I worked on was with General Motors, or GM. And at the turn of the millennium, they decided that they wanted to start changing how they conducted research from a mail survey, like they literally put a survey in the mail, to online. And at that time, 20 years ago, this was very typical, as researchers were starting to move away from physical mail surveys or telephone surveys to online surveys, which seems utterly normal today. But this was a typical project. We helped large organizations with a lot of marketing or their research budget to better understand their customers in this new environment so that they could be making better and more informed decisions about how to get the right business from them. But after founding Lucid in 2010, we started to see a shift in the type of companies that were looking for these insights, not just the largest Fortune 100 firms, but organizations that previously didn't have the resources, the experience, or even the headcount to conduct market research. We saw them now really coming to the table. Now we're still seeing those large, heavily branded, heavily marketed products, the consumer packaged goods, the consumer services and luxury goods. At the same time, we're starting to see more B2B companies that are looking for insights from their corporate customers. And we are engaging with companies that traditionally deal in what I'd call a low consideration products like commodities or utilities. These types of organizations historically haven't made customer experience a top priority, as you probably are aware. And what's most exciting for me is that we're starting to see much smaller companies, niche brands, e-commerce sites, local franchises, and startups beginning to take advantage of market research and market research insights. And this powers the vision of Lucid that we want to democratize access to insights so that anyone, anywhere can improve their business or product through market research. So it's a thrill for me to see smaller companies or newer companies that did not have the capacity or the wherewithal to start doing research for themselves. The simple reality is that market research is becoming cheaper and easier. There's an old mindset that only the largest companies with the largest budgets can create products that are built by market research and have outsized returns. As we all recognize that it's cheaper, faster, and easier now to run research than ever before, that means that everyone, including you, have the ability and the decision-making ability to inform your customer experiences. Not only is it faster and cheaper, honestly, it's becoming required. Those companies that conduct research, that really look into the insights of their customer needs, are far outpacing those companies that don't. So it's more than just a want, it's now a competitive leapfrog to those around you. Because market research is also becoming ubiquitous, it's something that more and more people, associations, and companies are doing. It's becoming one of those crucial parts of the decision-making process for all types of businesses. Not only because they want to make the right decision, but also because they want to make sure that every dollar spent, whether it's on advertising, market, on product development, are all being spent in the right direction. Market research has proven itself to be some of the best money spent with any organization. But how do we get to this point? How has research gone from what I'll call the back office of large Fortune 100 companies and the largest market research agencies in the world into a prime driver of innovation and a key point for decisioning? And that leads us to the theme of where our industry is going today, what we call research tech, or res tech for short. Technology has carried us to this point, and we built Lucid on a strong technological backbone, and the industry and ecosystem that surround us really understands how technology can drive innovation. Now, I realize this is also the first time many of you have heard these two words come together, but we define research tech, or res tech for short, as the technology that enables and amplifies online research across the globe through programmatic connections in digital marketplaces. This is the category that we have grown up in. This is the category that we helped define. This is the category that we lead, and the category that is highly disruptive to the insights and market research space globally. Not only is it growing fast, some of our recent numbers showed that this segment of the research industry is growing between 50 and 100% per year in overall growth. Over $1.2 billion of investment was made into res tech companies in 2019 and 2020. For many years, we lived in the space between sample, the users that take surveys, and market research without a clear fit into either bucket. But as our business has grown and become far more encompassing, so have our peers. And they've begun to expand in more and more areas and enable more and more insights to reach broader and more diverse audiences. Technology and the cost efficiency that it creates has always been a driver of innovation. As I mentioned before, in my experience back in the day, surveys were done on the telephone. They were done via the mail. They were done, honestly, in the malls, whatever those are. And through each evolution of research, whether it's focus groups or phone surveys or the malls research, the ability to gain more insight at a lower cost base has been one of the ultimate goals, but not just cost, also speed and efficiency. What this has allowed every single time we have a new innovation in technology is for more research to be done, to broaden the base of research globally. And each technology jump has lowered the barriers to the industry and allowed businesses that were previously unable, as we mentioned before, to afford market research, to do it, to better understand their audiences and customers, and to outperform the competition. And that brings us to our piece of this history. With the rise of online research, many businesses we saw the rise of marketplaces and their impact on a myriad number of industries. For example, we saw how advertising not only became digital, but became programmatic with large players like Google and Amazon really driving innovation and change in that space. We also have seen it in marketing or MarTech, where large companies like HubSpot have redefined what marketing is. We took those principles of marketplaces and programmatic connections and applied them to market research. And we unified hundreds of buyers and sellers of sample in one place. Today, because of that work, we represent the broadest pool of respondents and the best look at the future state of research. So to better understand how this has changed research, let's look at the current state. So today, this represents a typical linear product cycle. It's a linear approach. You go from one side to the other, and it's a waterfall approach versus what we might call agile. From the initiative launch at the one side all the way to marketing the product on the other, it can go from A to B without a view of continual refinement. And not only is this process linear, honestly, it can be very slow. And the information flow from one side to the other may not even exist. So the iteration, the speed, and the knowledge are not optimized from A to B. Now, we've talked about this, but the best way to enable success will be knowing what your target audience wants at every stage of product development, at every stage of building your startup. Being able to bring them into the metaphorical room at every crucial stage of this process will allow for a more precise product. Your solutions and your target audience's needs will be completely aligned because they should always be on parallel tracks. Now, a good example of missing the mark is with McDonald's. So this is a real world example. You may not remember this, but in the 90s, McDonald's launched a product called the Arch Deluxe. And this was an attempt by McDonald's at that time to shed its one childish reputation associated with their brand, but also to, quote, ditch the clown and make their fast food more sophisticated. And of course, this launch was paired with a massive advertising campaign with all the right teasers, billboards, television, radio, and every medium that was available at the time. But it was also a failure of research. See, McDonald's tested the audience that they thought would buy their product, but not the ones that were currently buying McDonald's food. And so they didn't actually sample the right user group. They didn't actually ask the right people what they thought of the Arch Deluxe. They were focused on crossing the finish line, but not with continual refinement and engaging with their target customer. And this, of course, cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. And of course, there is no Arch Deluxe. But to be honest, back in the 90s, I had a few. What ResTech can bring, what the problem it tries to solve, is what we might call the ideal state of research. This is a scenario where it's not linear, it's a circle. It enables constant refinement and adjustments based on the ever-evolving nature of the target customer. The product cycle doesn't have to be linear. They must be in this spherical approach to continually adapt to your customer's needs and moving from waterfall to the default of agile, because data collection is never so straightforward. And we have plenty of examples with our customers today where research is being done at a speed and scale that was unknown before. We've had customers do research in the first meeting with the customer or the client. The client will ask a question in the first 10 minutes of a conversation, and then our partner will create a survey on the fly and have an answer before the hour-long meeting is up. We also have scenarios where a customer won't do a single survey. While the survey is being conducted, they will look at some of the partial data and then iterate the research and the surveys as results come in. What used to take a month now can take a week or an hour. And this creates a possibility for iteration and bringing the customer into the conversation in ways that were just not possible before. So we want to bring market research and talk about market research from the top, the mountaintop of every business. Every business that is in the need of strategies, learnings, and perspectives. Insights are sometimes just simple answers. Ultimately, we want to change the landscape of every industry. When every business can cheaply leverage the insights of their actual target audience, we believe a more perfect world is created. It can enable the voice of the customer to be the driver of innovation. And no longer do we need to make decisions based upon whims or gut feelings or reactions. The true power of ResTech is the democratization of that market research, taking the power from the hands of a few large players to the millions of small businesses well across the globe. When ResTech is able to broaden the access to every business in need of insights, we will have done our job of elevating the industry. We will become more important than we thought ever imagined, and will be the key cog in the machinery of every business decision. Not a simple box to be checked at the beginning or the conclusion of initiative, but a powerful resource that must be consulted. But the elevation won't just impact ResTech. It will elevate the voice of consumers everywhere, bringing the customer into these key moments and allowing their opinions, their thoughts, and their feelings to change the direction of companies, of products, of political campaigns, and also impact their own lives. So let's elevate this opportunity to ask for those opinions. What do immediate insights and ResTech mean for entrepreneurs? For one, immediate insights are now an opportunity. Now you can not only mock up an initial UI for a product, you can easily and cheaply survey your potential users to better understand the reaction to your new company. It means that you can ask at every stage of your product development what exactly your customers need. And when investors have questions about whether or not your customers are going to actually buy the product or take it seriously, instead of telling a story, you can also provide the data. It's also an opportunity for your customers to have a voice. And in terms of technology, a lot of work is often done with A/B testing to really show the difference in certain types of behaviors. But now you can ask your users, your customers, why. Why are they doing what they're doing in your product or your service? Why they prefer one path over another, one product over another. And it's that ability to ask why that makes market research so valuable to a startup and to any business. And finally, it creates for the ability to have a fluid and flexible strategy. Now, strategies don't have to be fixed and static. Your 5-year plan, what does it even mean these days? It must be more fluid. It must be more adaptable. We can, of course, all recognize that in the past 12 months, we've had to be more adaptable than ever. And being rigid to changing environments only set you up for a wake-up call or potential challenge. Flexibility is the key to survival. We saw this time and time again, and our customers were able to react much more quickly to the changing consumer environment. You can imagine that over the summer, every single advertising campaign had to be repositioned and rebuilt because of the realities of COVID and the realities of everything happening over the summer in 2020. And we saw more work in our advertising business than ever before. A great example was a group of kazoo players that was being advertised with Facebook groups made no sense in COVID and had to be replaced with a group of users who were in a mask sewing group. So research helps us make those pivots, helps us make those changes, helps us stay in front of where our ever-changing consumer landscape is going, so that our products and services are matching where the users are going, not where we've been. Ultimately, ResTech, market research technology, creates an opportunity for a more efficient world. And as we business leaders are looking to lower barriers and remove hindrances, we can resolve catastrophes before they begin because we can make better decisions. And truly, the possibilities are endless. So at Lucid, we helped to create this new reality. But honestly, if we hadn't, someone else would. And if we can't, someone else will pick up the mantle and realize this dream. But we know that we are off to a hell of a good start, well, because we asked our users. It's exciting for me, honestly, to be in the middle of a highly disruptive technology innovation within a huge sector that was becoming more and more important. It's exciting for me to share these details with you and talk about how market research honestly can change the world. So I appreciate your time and attention today. And I am very much open and willing to take any and all questions that become available. So thank you.
Hey,
Hey,
Patrick.
Wendy. You're back. Good. I was worried there for a second.
I was listening. I was just across the room with food in my mouth.
No worries. Food's important these days.
So I am so glad you came today. I very much appreciate you sharing your wisdom and insight. Give me just a moment while I get my glasses on. And I've got a few questions from the audience. So those of you that are out there listening, as we get started on our first question, I would like to just encourage you to ask a question there in the chat, and we will get to your question. But to start off, I'd like to know, when you think about your entrepreneurial journey at Lucid, what were the most surprising parts of it upon reflection?
Well, I've been in entrepreneurship for well over 20 years now. So the Lucid piece of it is a very specific timeline. But the best part of entrepreneurship at Lucid was honestly starting a company in Louisiana. Because my experiences of starting companies and being with startups, I've been in New York, London, and Los Angeles before. And as we all know, Louisiana has a very particular and interesting culture. It's really a culture of people first. And so the amazing aspects of being with a startup in 2010 was that the relationships and the culture mattered probably more than just the business idea and the innovation. And I wanted to make sure that that culture is represented in the Lucid culture. The other bit is in 2010, that was only a few years after Katrina. And it's usual and normal for the team around a startup to get excited about the product or the service. That's expected, even though in our world, that product and service was a marketplace for sample, which people had no idea what that was. But 3 years after Katrina, we recognized that building a successful company, creating those jobs, creating those opportunities was important in the community, period. And so there was this dual passion, not just for the success of the company, because that's a nice thing to do, but also for success of rebuilding and reestablishing our community. And that passion has been driving me for a decade now.
Awesome. Thank you. So how will ResTech democratize research?
Well, simple and great question. In the past, before ResTech, it was more challenging and more expensive to actually do research. Meaning, if you're a brand with a large research department, you would go hire a market research agency, firms that you may or may not know, like Kantar and Ipsos or Gallup as an example. You would hire these large agencies to do the work. Now with ResTech, through companies like Lucid and our partners like SurveyMonkey, anyone can do that research. And anyone can start asking questions and innovate their products and brands without having to go to an agency. Now, that doesn't mean those agencies don't provide large value. It's just they can be expensive and out of the reach of a lot of different businesses and people out there. Also, ResTech makes it easy to change the language barrier, meaning that research is now available for anyone, anywhere on the planet, and that you can do research in any country on the planet these days. It's a simple thing versus a hard thing.
Very valuable. So what do you think will happen next in ResTech?
What will happen next? Well, for years, we were pushing sand uphill, to be honest. We had this vision that a marketplace could transform how research was conducted. We had this vision that being programmatic, which means API connected, digitally connected companies, would outperform everyone. And it took a long time before the overall industry, well, agreed that that was true. Now we see adoption of ResTech principles happening across the industry, from large agencies like a Kantar or Ipsos, but also more and more new platforms, new companies being built. And I mentioned before that in 2020, there was about $1.2 billion invested in ResTech. So we're seeing a transformation of how data is being collected. And we're seeing a transformation of how much importance and focus this sector is creating. More investors are coming in, and we'll start seeing large IPOs as an example. There's a firm, Qualtrics, out of Utah, which will go public this year for many billions of dollars. And so we're going to start seeing a lot of the visible signs of success coming through ResTech. But honestly, the most exciting days of the industry are in front of us. Now that everyone has adopted the future, what they build and how it develops is pretty exciting.
I'm sure that's going to get a bit meta at some point when the ResTech companies are analyzing the progress of the ResTech industry. And I'm sure we're going to start to get some interesting kind of blueprints for how new areas, new technology, brand new sectors open up. Y'all are going to study yourselves in some meta way.
I hope to provide a blueprint for other companies to think about what they can achieve. One thing we've been excited about at Lucid is focusing on not just how Lucid, the company, evolves, but the industry around us evolves. And making sure that all boats are rising with the tide, so that the success isn't just Lucid success, it's our customers, even our competitors, because we found that as the industry grows faster, that our success grows with it. And so I actually hope that people are not just thinking about how their own company can perform, but how their overall industry can grow and change to everyone's mutual benefit.
Yeah, so speaking of that idea of a blueprint for growth, yesterday Genevieve Silverman gave a discussion about how innovation can shape a city. And she highlighted the role that Lucid had in New Orleans about spinning off these entrepreneurial ventures. Can you
Yeah.
speak a moment to that?
Well, we say at Lucid that if all we do is build one great company, we failed in our overall mission. The purpose of Lucid is not just the business model, the revenue, the growth. The purpose is how many other companies are either started or highly influenced by people that have worked at Lucid. And so it thrills me to no end that we have companies that are founded by former Lucid employees. An example would be, say, Sample Chain that Vignesh Krishnan started as the CEO, or Rep Data that Patrick Stokes started as CEO. These are former employees that started net new industries in this particular sector.
Nice.
And so we talk about the res tech industry and the hub of res tech, the center point for res tech being Louisiana, being New Orleans. But what's exciting for me is be able to tell new employees that I'm as interested in their success at Lucid, but also as interested in their success after Lucid, because our mission is to build broader community engagement and have, again, a lot of boats rise with the tide. So it's thrilling. So.
Well, that's why we're so honored to have you join us, because that's a model that I think that every community in the state in general, if we adopt that mentality, we're going to see some exciting opportunities open up for everybody.
And I think that the sense of what you can do as a community to attract talent and companies either to your community, whether it be Baton Rouge, New Orleans, or any part of Louisiana, is starting to change when most technology companies are now remote first. And what that means is that anyone can work for any company from anywhere. So the question I'm starting to ask folks around the economic development or in leadership in local communities is, how are you attracting those remote workers? When and how do they start choosing our cities, our state as a place to live and reside? Because they don't have to be in California or New York or Texas to work anymore. And that remote first mentality is not suddenly going to go away once there's that light in the end of the tunnel, post-COVID, post-vaccination reality. Remote work for technology employees is going to continue. And the question is, how are we attracting and retaining those to be in our local communities?
Any ideas?
Well, I like to start thinking of it as city as a service. What are the services, products, and culture that are being provided by local communities to attract and retain those companies? And also, I mean, those individuals. And also today, economic development tends to be about attracting companies to a place versus attracting the talent to a place. And I think there's far more value in terms of attracting the talent over time than just the companies. So it's really changing, who is your customer? Is your customer the CEO and decision maker of a company who might move to Louisiana or open a new division there? Or is your customer really all the technology employees that could come here if they so choose? And that's just a mindset shift of what's important to the economic development of a community.
Quite a message to the city leaders of both of our cities. So let's hope they're listening.
Well, I don't think it's one or the other. I think you do both. But the opportunity in front of us is to be one of those destination communities for remote technology employees.
I agree. Another question says, how do you handle situations where customers' needs or opinions are not fixed, but rapidly changing, such as during a, say, political campaign?
Well, we had a tremendous political season here in our country, as you well know. But I say tremendous also in the market research world. We saw more surveys and polls, not just by the campaigns, but by all the PACs and all of the resources around campaigns. We saw more volume of data collection than ever before. In fact, they were running as a group between 60 to 100,000 surveys a day.
Wow.
in the 4 weeks leading up to the election. So if you're familiar with, say, polls that you see on 538 or any type of TV network or newspaper, that's really the very tip of the iceberg of the data collected for a political campaign. And they test so much because news and new information can change someone's point of view, especially the few undecided voters. And so we saw not only nationwide data collection, but in 2016, the challenge that Democrats faced is they were unaware of how the sands were shifting on them in certain battleground states, which allowed Trump to come to victory. They were not going to make that mistake again. And so the amount of, again, surveying and polling in battleground states was just astronomical. It was so big that for the first time in 20 years, all the other research that would normally be conducted in October and early November had to wait in line because they couldn't get enough users to take the surveys. It had a monster impact on data collection in the United States.
Wow.
And to be honest, all that is only possible because of ResTech. They moved completely from phone to ResTech in 2020.
Wow. Well, I still got a few phone calls, but I do agree.
Well, that means you still have a landline, which is a shrinking number of people actually answer their home phone.
I have been outed. Yes, I have a landline. That's correct.
Yeah.
So Kiara Thomas asks, what was it like at the beginning? How did you get started? And that has 3 upvotes. So, you know, you got some people out there asking for that question.
Well, there are a number of beginning points. The first beginning point was months before we started the company, when I knew that one of my former employee was going to be sold. I started working with my brother on what kind of business model, what type of company might be interesting, you know, to do. I had moved to New Orleans in 2008, not for work, but for family, because my wife and I were starting our family. We just gotten married, and she's the youngest of 12. And so now I live in Luling, Louisiana, because that's where our family is. But the first big decision was wanting to start a company, because I've been down this road before. And if you look at my entire career, as much as Lucid screams success now, I've been part of the founding team of a number of startups that went nowhere. And so the first big decision was, am I ready and really willing to put myself out there again, to be the front person, to be the person taking all the risk, to be the visionary, but also if it fails, to be the person that did that to again. And that was decision number 1. And I remember driving on the 310 bridge in Luling, Louisiana, making the decision that I was going to actually start a company. What it was like early in 2010 to start a company in Louisiana was, it was more challenging than in Los Angeles and New York on a number of different fronts. One was, well, there are no venture capitalists in New Orleans, right? Who's at that time in particular. Not only were there no VCs, there were no real angel networks. So figuring out how you're going to raise capital for the company was very different than what it was like in New York, as an example. Also, the talent pool is very different. One of the things that makes it easier to start a company is being able to hire people that have been in other startups, because the context of a startup is very unique than a typical job. Yeah. And it's less about, especially early days, the function. Are you in marketing? Are you in sales or operations? What's important to me starting a company is, have you been a part of a startup? Because you will know inherently the environment, what you need to do. And in 2010 in New Orleans, there are very few people that have been a part of a startup, much less a technology startup, ever before. So we had talent challenges. We had also investment dollars challenges, as an example. But the balance really was, we also had passion. And I talked about that earlier. We were all dedicated to, and still are dedicated to, the community, to its rebirth, its revitalization, its growth. And the passion and intentionality around that made us overcome all those obstacles to build a $100 million revenue business today.
So speaking of that commitment to your city and our thoughts earlier about city as a service and attracting the remote workers, Donald Andrews asks, does Baton Rouge and New Orleans need to work more collaboratively to generate the quality of life that the creative class would like as a quality place to live? And that's getting into some age-old competition that we've had between our cities. I'd love to hear your ideas for how we overcome that.
Honestly, I think that age-old competition is boring and quite drags everyone down, if I'm just being really frank.
I
I moved
totally
from Los
agree.
Angeles. I moved from Los Angeles, where Los Angeles County is probably bigger than the region called Baton Rouge and New Orleans. But we have this in New Orleans where people talk about not being able to drive out to Metairie or Kenner. And this just is kind of, in my mind, ridiculous. The reason I know it's ridiculous is because of market research. And I've done so many studies where a large brand, Procter & Gamble, or any other company that's trying to roll out a new product or service, they typically roll out in the top 25 markets in the country first. And if you're in the top 25 markets, you get everything first. You get all of the new products, the new services, the new restaurants, whatever it is, they go to those markets first. And they poll and survey those markets to understand how those products fit the needs of that market first. Neither New Orleans nor Baton Rouge are in the top 50. However, if you take the G&O region and the Baton Rouge Economic Development region and combine them together, they become the 21st largest metropolitan area in the country. This is something that Dallas and Fort Worth did to a huge benefit to that region a long time ago. And their economic vibrancy has dramatically scaled over the past decades. And part of it was recognizing that in aggregate, we can do a lot more. So I find this conversation boring because I don't think it is real. And in terms of our economic vibrancy as a state, we need to talk about our community together, not apart. And what do we call it? You know, Dallas Fort Worth is rather boring. You can call it NOLA Rouge. What's the moniker there? But it's important that the federal government reclassify the census tracts and the PMSA, which are kind of technical terms around census and how things are defined, to make Baton Rouge and New Orleans a combined, consolidated metropolitan statistical area. Because if they do that, we will get a lot of goodies we don't get otherwise. And to do that, we have to actually commute back and forth a lot more than we do today.
Yeah. Excellent points. Yeah, I could speak a lot about, like, I see this as one big region, and I'm so grateful of not only the supportive organization, but over the years we've had a lot of interactions with the groups down in New Orleans, because we see all of our the entrepreneur and the investment community, they're all connected, as are even the creative community. If you just reach out, they are connected, and that's nice to see.
It's also part of the reason why I wanted to participate, is because it's not just about New Orleans or Lafayette or Baton Rouge, it's about all of us together. And if we can combine resources, we have a lot more capacity for what we can accomplish.
Well said, well said. And I like that you can put some facts against that concept. So those were very powerful. I have another question. Let's see. Can you expand on customer experience and its expectations in the B2B space, especially regarding high tech?
Well, what's been changing in B2B, so if the product or service is meant to serve someone in another company versus a consumer, traditionally that research was very expensive and very hard. A great example of a type of customer in B2B that we have all the time are what are called IT decision makers. And this is one of the single hardest groups to reach, are those people in an organization that make decisions about what types of technology, software, and services that company buys and uses. But now, because of ResTech, we can actually get those people's opinions about how technology is changing or could change in those organizations, where that organization is a hospital or any type of and so that customer experience of how a procurement officer, as an example, actually goes through a platform and buys different products is one of those customer experiences that a B2B company can now measure and test and understand, whereas previously it was kind of hard and difficult to really understand the decision-making process of those types of companies. So it's opening up that decision-making process that would normally be hidden in a B2B customer and now giving access to it to you.
Thank you. So y'all, we have time for one more question. I was just checking to make sure that we've got our comments. A lot of interactive comments about people responding to the insights that you've just shared. So it's been fascinating to see what's happening on the comments. So Patrick, any final words for us? Any suggestions or final closing words of advice to the entrepreneurs watching us today?
My only bit of closing advice is that an entrepreneur is the most excellent and hardest of journeys. I always have a deep amount of respect for anyone who attempts, much less succeeds in entrepreneurship. And that, as people well know, my door is open. I engage with and work with founders and entrepreneurs and those that work with them all the time. And if there's any support that I can aid or lend to whatever you're working on, please let me know. And in particular, we run a lot of surveys for a lot of people. And so if you need to figure out how your current or potential users are going to engage with whatever you're doing, you know who to call. We can help you figure that out and provide better answers and move the business forward faster.
Thank you, Patrick. That's very generous and wise. We know that entrepreneurs that test their ideas first before they start pouring money into product development or launching do much better. So we don't want people to artificially scale a bad idea. We want them to scale the right ideas, or actually they will probably not be able to scale the bad idea because it is a bad idea.
I've put a lot of money at bad ideas that I thought were awesome because I didn't test them.
Yeah, testing first is a key moment. So thank you for joining us today, Patrick, and we very much appreciate hearing your story and all the advice and wisdom that you've shared with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Y'all take care. Y'all have fun. Onward.
Thank you. So thank you to Patrick and all of our question askers. That was a fantastic discussion, and I've got lots of takeaways for myself, and I hope you do too. So for all of you, we're so glad that you joined us this morning, and I hope to see you around at our other sessions of BREW. So next up is your choice of either or an and. Starting at 11:30 is Hot Mic, Executive Improv, hosted by Theater Baton Rouge. This special session, it is an add-on price, but it's worth it to learn straight from our expert artists. Hot Mic is designed to give you a taste of the skills that you can practice to get better at staying present, thinking on your feet, and responding thoughtfully in the moment. We often have reactions that are unconscious and often unhelpful. You might blurt out the wrong thing or an unhelpful attitude or possibly go into freeze mode like a bunny. None of those skills support the goals and dreams we have for our businesses, our lives, and our relationships. Learning how to stay present and respond appropriately in the moment can help any entrepreneur, executive, professional, or anyone really. So if you want to join in that does start at 11:30, so you'll need to go buy your ticket now. But for the next 2 hours, we also have networking open. So from now until our next panel session, which begins at 12:30, you can take advantage of our one-to-one video meetings or interact in other ways with the other attendees. So to do the one-to-one meetings, you'll check out your fellow attendees' profiles and you'll see a button there to click to set a meeting. And once you've set your meeting, then you'll be able to have a 15-minute video chat over in the one-to-one meeting section of your website. Do pay attention to the red dots at the top of your screen because those are messages for you that you should go check out because someone might be trying to meet with you. So video not for you. At the end of the day, we will have a voice-only session of networking. So join us in Philip Rosedale's talk to learn more about high fidelity, or join us for networking directly in the High Fidelity platform right after Philip's talk. You can check out the agenda of sessions for the rest of the day and also tomorrow. But right now, enjoy networking, and we will see you at either Hot Mic or at our session on investing. Thank you so much and have a good morning.